All right, well then, good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Holliston Zoning Board of Appeals meeting for June 22nd, 2020. Prior to the meeting, I want to read into the record our statement about the remote work here. Pursuant to the governor's order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, MGL Chapter 30A, Paragraph 20, as well as the Select Board's emergency order dated March 16th, 2020. The Zoning Board of Appeals will be using remote participation for this meeting. The audio of this meeting is being recorded and will be posted on the town's webpage within 24 hours in accordance with the governor's emergency action requirement of keeping the public informed of actions during this meeting. I would ask that all participants remotely attending the meeting please state your name for identification purposes each time you speak throughout the meeting. At this time, a roll call of attendance vote will be taken. John Love, present. Jay Peabody.
Present.
Mark Bush.
Present.
Elizabeth Dembitzer. I don't see her on the screen, and I know she was away and going to have trouble, so let's presume she's not. She has recused herself anyway for this particular action, so we weren't anticipating her. A couple of housekeeping items for those that are on the call remotely or on the Zoom call. We're going to do things a little bit differently than we have. This has worked for some of the other committees well, and so we are going to try and do it. And that is, if you are interested in being heard, either to ask a question or to make a comment at the appropriate time, there's a feature called raising your hand, which we'd like you to do. In order to do that, at the bottom of your screen, there's a little icon that says participants. If you click that, I think a list of the participants will show on the right-hand side of the screen. And at the bottom, very bottom right of that, there is a button that says raise hand. If you click on that, I will then see the designation that you've raised your hand, and we'll try to recognize people as appropriate. And since the board members will be able to hear, if you see something and I've missed it, please remind me. If you are on the phone, to raise your hand, if you will click *9, it will come up there, and I will recognize you by your, I won't know your name, just your phone number. So I'll recognize you by the phone number, and we'll unmute you, and you will be able to speak. So let me know if that's there. And if for some reason that's not working, try waving your hands, and I'll take the literal raise hand and try to do it. So thank you. If we can do that. So what we wanted to do tonight was continue our hearing on the Indian Ridge 40B proposal, and specifically to look at the peer review comments, responses to the comments, and further comments from our peer review engineer, David Feist, and to discuss some of those, ask questions, and let people do that. Additionally, for those that are interested, we received the traffic report from the applicant, and it's on the website for this. We're not going to address that tonight because we're in the process of bringing our peer review engineer on to review that. So rather than us ask a lot of uninformed questions that he can probably ask more explicitly, they can ask more explicitly, he, she, it, whoever ends up. We're going to set up a meeting for that. However, I would invite everyone to take a look, because I know for all of us, traffic was one of the large concerns with this. And please feel free to not wait until the meeting if you'd like to forward any questions of the applicant or concerns. If you send to them, we will forward those as well and try and make sure that everything is out there and that we're getting the responses. So please feel free to do that. So I think we have Rob Truex, the engineer for the applicant, on the phone, and David Feist, our own engineer. So maybe we can start. And I don't know what's the best process for this, but maybe it's to go through the latest responses that have come in and start to ask some of the questions. I think there's many have been answered, and are there others are still either looking for information or looking for clarification of those. So let me pull up and we'll take a start down that path. Easily said. Nope. Okay. So, Mr. Truex, one of the first one is the waiver list that we've talked about. Any sense on that? Because I think that's going to have a lot to do with our specific
I did speak with, for the record, Rob Truex, GLM Engineering. I spoke with Dean about this, and because he's not here tonight, but I think he was going to wait till after this meeting. We were going to get together and prepare that list and submit it. We wanted to get through this next meeting.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's it.
So yeah, so I would think that's forthcoming in the next 2 weeks.
Okay. And I think there were some, the second question is the architectural plans. Do you know that any, when do we anticipate seeing them through this process, or what we've seen is what we're going to see? Do you know?
I haven't seen the plans that you were provided in the package. Were they just, maybe Karen can answer this, were they just single family houses, Karen, and nothing for the duplex style?
Looks like it.
Okay, so I think during this process you should get plans, at least, you know, the preliminary base plans for the 2-family style houses. I think all you've received is the single family ones.
Okay.
So we can provide.
I know this has been answered, but it came up again, and I think it's because it's not necessarily completely obvious from the plans. But can you review, Rob, the number of units of each type and compared to the number of the lots? Because I know it, to me, it made sense at one point, but I think it's a little confusing because you've got a lot.
Let me, if I could, Mr. Chairman, I could share my screen with you. It would be easier.
Sure, please do. Yep.
Which one do I want to share? Okay, I want to go to the full set. So if we go to the full set of plans and you look at sheet 2, I think that I did read the comment from one of the neighbors about the lot count. So if you look at sheet 2, this is the subdivision layout of the lots. And what we're showing there is 23 lots and a parcel A. So technically there's 24 lots on the property. However, lot 1, which is down on the bottom right, is not going to have a house on it. It's only used for the drainage system. The drainage basin is on that lot. Parcel A, which is up.
Bob, it doesn't look your screen is sharing. I don't know if you can
Yeah,
stop it.
I
was just gonna say the same.
Okay,
It says you
maybe I got
started.
it on the wrong one. How's that?
No,
Still not sharing?
Still not seeing it.
just see a black screen.
All right, hold on. Let me see if I can figure this out real quick. Hey, Joyce, why aren't I sharing?
Oh, while he's doing that, well, I guess, and Buckley, were you just going to tell us that you couldn't see it? If
Do I
that's,
need to open it on my screen?
Put your hand down. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Put it over there. Okay, now
Oh,
start.
that's why it's not sharing. I didn't have it open.
Select the one.
That one.
Yeah, there it comes.
Okay, we got it up now?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. So as I was saying, if you look at the screen I have up now, so there's 23 lots shown in a parcel A, so technically 24 total parcels on the property. Lot 1 will not have a house on it. That lot is being utilized for the drainage basin. And parcel A, which is in the back top northerly corner, that's for the leaching field for the septic system. So there's 22 lots that will be built on. 20 of them will have single family homes and 2 of them will have duplexes. And that's how you get to the 24 units. So the lot, I'm just gonna go to the, so lots 14 and 15 will be the duplex style houses. All the rest will be single families.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. Oh, that may be in the next one. So for, okay, question 3 here, I think we had a comment on 2-family duplex homes are proposed on 14 and 15. It's unclear if they will have garages. And we haven't seen the plan. So you said we'll see
Yes,
the
that's
plans,
correct.
and that will answer. Do you happen to know whether they do also?
They will have garages,
Okay. Thanks.
yes.
Okay. 1, 2, 3. Let's see. I think. Four suggested that that's regarding the wetlands, and that we suggested that a valid order of conditions be required. 5 is the, oh, you know what?
I can talk about the conservation a little bit, Mr. Chairman, if you'd like.
Okay, sure. If there's anything that,
Sure. So, and I'm sure there was some confusion last night. We have filed a notice of intent with the Conservation Commission. The hearing was scheduled for last evening. Unfortunately, when we did the abutter notification, we somehow had missed all the abutters in the town of Ashland, being that the project abuts the town of Ashland. So we've re-notified and continued that hearing last night. So there was no presentation last night. I believe it was just continued, and we're going to re-notify everyone, and the hearing will be, I believe it's in 2 weeks. So we are before the conservation. It is filed. We do anticipate we would, hopefully around the same time that this comes to an end, that we would be done with conservation as well. So, I mean, obviously in your conditions of approval, you would require us to have an order of conditions, and it's required regardless.
okay. Next one was the sanitary, and I think there were some concerns, so maybe we can just
Sure.
talk a little more generally about the
So, yep,
sanitary and leach
I can
field.
talk a little bit about it.
Sure, thank you.
So, and I saw the letter from the woman who lives up next to the septic system, and we hear her concern. So the system we're going to install up there, we're going to do the Oakson drip system, which is identical to the systems that have been installed on the two of the projects in the town of Holliston. One of them is down off Washington Street, which is the over 55. And if people want to go down and see that and walk around it and get a feel for it, and so they can sense that there's no odors and things like that going on, they're more than welcome to go down there. The other one is up on Route 126 as you're going down on the right, the other over 55, that one as well. The other concern, I believe, from the neighbor is obviously she's going to see the open grassed area. So I've talked to the client. We've talked about, I don't want to put a planting buffer because I can't plant over the leaching field, but we are amenable to putting up a privacy fence along her lot line for the length of that whole parcel A. So to give her some screening away from that open area. I do recommend that if anyone's concerned about that, they can walk up and look at these other systems. I mean, I've had conversations with Scott Moles about this system, what we're going to do. The difference between our system and what we're doing and the other two is we are going to put individual septic tanks at every house. I believe on the project they did, they had one large tank, and there were some issues with the one large tank getting the peak flow in the mornings. So it was recommended, I spoke with Scott about it, Scott Moles, and he also recommended it to me that we do individual tanks. So every house, every unit, the duplexes will have two, one for each unit. So every house will have its own separate septic tank that can be pumped and maintained. There will be a pump chamber and a vented area down by the drainage basin. So the venting and all that, and the pumps and the generators and all those things are located down on lot 1. So there's really nothing, there's no mechanical parts or moving parts located up in the leaching field area.
Okay, Scott was actually kind enough to join us tonight, and I don't know whether
Sure.
you have any comments, Scott, or questions relative to that, or anything that may fill in the townsfolk's.
It's just when we get the final layout, getting the final design submitted for review and approval.
Okay.
So we'll work out all the final details with the permits.
Okay. I do see a couple of hands raised, so before we move on, presuming it may be this. Ann Buckley, yours is up, and perhaps you can unmute and tell us, ask your question or.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it's regarding the previous point that we were talking about the numbers of properties. Do we know which ones are going to be affordable? Are we still working on 6 affordable income properties, and which plots will that be?
So I can answer that, Mr. Chairman, if you'd like.
If you know the answer, yeah, it was a question I had for later, but that's while we're there.
That's fine. So there will be 6 affordable units, 25%. We have not designated which ones they are. The way it works is we will have to designate it when we give it to, goes back to the housing committee.
Mm-hmm.
And at that point, and the way we do it, it's not like there's not going to be 6 units on one side of the site. They have to be dispersed evenly throughout the project site. So you can't just take all 6 of them and say, I'm going to put them way down the back in the corner. So they will be dispersed. One of the duplexes will most likely be an affordable, but only one, because there's a 4, so 25%. And the other 5 would be single families. And they would just be dispersed through the site.
Okay.
We don't usually designate those at this time, because that could change based on what housing says. Department of Housing, they're going to review it, and they're going to tell us once we submit a plan showing them which ones, and And they may move some of them if they don't like how we've laid them out.
Right, okay. It's just the reason for all of this confusion is that, I mean, you've cleared up the points about lot 1 not being a property, but
Right.
then if you look at the report from Mr. Feist, it references 24 single family homes and 8 homes under the Affordable Housing Act. So it's just the documentation just doesn't marry up, whichever way you're looking at it. So that was why I just repeatedly kept coming back to that point, like how many are we doing and how many are affordable and what percentage are going to be duplexes and what are going to be single family. I just couldn't work out how you were going to get the extra property in there with already a very dense plan. And then it appeared that the number of affordables had been increased from 6 to 8. So that's the reason that question was still coming back.
So okay, just to be clear, there's 24 total units. There's 20 that are single families.
Yeah.
4 will be duplex style, and it will only be 6 affordable total.
Okay.
It's 25%.
Yes. Yeah. No, that's as it was in the original plan. But as we've moved forward,
Okay.
then other documentation that has come after that has contradicted those numbers, which is why I kept coming back to them. I just wanted to explain where that confusion was coming from. It's from a document that exists on the website.
Okay, so what we.
But that's clear now, so thank you.
Okay, thank you. You also we have a question from Bob Bolandrina. I'm sorry.
Bolandrina. Thank you.
Sorry.
No problem.
Sorry.
So, Mr. Truex, regarding the septic system in there, and so you mentioned that it's comparable to 2 places in Holliston for the over 55. Can you comment on the comparability of the sites where those 2 other systems are located? In particular, the amount of ledge and whether or not it's similarly gravel soil, and also whether or not it's sloping towards another area or not.
I don't know on their sites what they had for material. I'm not familiar with it. I'm just familiar with the layout and where they sit. I know, and I've driven in and looked at the one on Washington Street, and I know the fields over on the right when you drive in the project development on the lower level. I think the other one up on the hill, I think that system, I didn't get close to the leaching field because it was behind units. It was in like their backyard, so I didn't walk back there to look at it.
That's fair.
Obviously, you can't put the system where there's ledge. We've already done probably about, I don't know, a dozen test pits in the area where this field's going to go, and there's no ledge up in that corner of the site at all. We've been able to dig down 12 to 14 feet with an excavator.
And what is the typical depth for a leaching field this size? And is that just all leaching field, or is there going to be any storage area in there?
It's all leaching field.
Just leaching field.
There's no, all the storage is in the septic tanks and the pump chamber.
I'm sorry, what was that second part? The plumb?
There's no storage in the leaching field. It goes up there and it trickles into the soil. It leaches out. We don't have any storage tanks. None of the storage tanks would be up in that area. We wouldn't be storing effluent. It would all be the solids, and all the waste would be in the septic tanks, which are located at each unit. And then the pump chamber is down lower, down on lot 1, and that's going to pump it up into the field.
Okay, so I'm not familiar with what a pump chamber is.
Okay, so basically it's just a big tank that the water can go into, and there's pumps inside that tank, and once it fills to a certain level, it'll shoot the water up through the pipes and put it into the leaching field. And then it will stop, replenish itself. People will take showers, whatever, and flow will get back in the tank. And when it hits that level again, it will pump it back up into the leaching field. So
will that
an ongoing thing that goes on all day.
Drain water from the road and everything?
No.
Runoff. Okay, so
no runoff
will not
goes
be
into that. No.
Okay.
No runoff.
So the only thing going in the leaching field would be what gets pumped in from the septic tanks.
Correct, sewage, that's it, just the gray water from the sewage.
Okay. That clarifies my questions for now. Thank you.
Okay, I have one more I see before we move on. Cecile Freilich. Oh,
Yeah, hi. Can you hear me?
yes, we can.
Yes, hi. So I'm right next to this sewage field, the sewage group. And I read the civil engineer report, which to me really is Greek. However, I mean, the civil engineer obviously had questions. And my question is, are you going to respond to the civil engineer to the point that someone who knows something about a system like that will be satisfied that the surrounding areas are safe and protected? I don't understand, you know, they were questioning the soil absorption on our property. I mean, I don't understand what that means. I mean, I understand that there's one sewage tank per one property, and there's 24, whether they're individual or not, there's still 24 of them right next to my property. And I would like to know how that's going to affect my property specifically in response to someone whose job it is to assess such things. So who's going to be able to answer how that's going to affect us? And probably the people above us as well. I mean, I'm only one of the abutters.
Hey, I guess I did a couple of things there. As far as the process goes, I think that is what we're trying to do right here. That's why we have Mr. Feiss reviewing these and making those comments. So I'm not, maybe you can be explicit on the specific questions there, but we'll we'll try. That's why he's on the line with us as well, and is going to, you know,
Mr. Chairman, if I could I add something? Yeah, basically to answer your question, the septic system design and approval is all through the Board of Health. Scott Moles is a process that the engineer has to go through to provide plans, and it's all supervised. Scott Moles has to witness the test pits, and before it can be approved for construction, Scott will have to approve all the plans to make sure that there isn't any impact to your property. So that's how the process would work.
So how do I find out? Do I deal directly with Mr. Moles, or what is the process here?
So the process is that they're having their hearing with Conservation and the Zoning Board of Appeals. As they come up, once they've got the final layout done, Rob Truex will submit a finalized septic design for all the houses with the pump chamber and the specs for the geoflow system and mounting calculations for the system to the Board of Health. We'll review them, and then prior to any construction, they'll have approved plans, similar to the ones I approved at for Pulte. Again, in having discussion with preliminary discussion with Rob Truex, I felt that having individual tanks for this project would better serve the product and nature of the neighborhood.
So how are we going to find out about it? Is that going to be posted, or just like this?
Well, it's not a hearing. You can again, as I would assume part of the approvals prior to construction would be finalized. Typically condition that final septic design plans approved by Board of Health prior to construction. So in other words, they gave you a basic layout of where the system is. I've witnessed the soils up in that area. say that we have suitable soils for the septic system for this project, then they'll submit a final design for review and approval prior to construction.
I guess I'm still unclear. So how does the public find out about that?
You could, as soon as they submit a copy of the design or request a copy of the design from Rob Truex right here, and as soon as he has a preliminary design, I'm sure he'll forward a copy on to you. But he's got basically the design in basic forms without the details of actual what pump size. But he basically has the location of the tanks, the pump chamber, and where the field is going to be located.
And could I ask Bob, I think there may be some misconception on just what is, can you describe once again the way this system is set up, where take the flow from the bathtub all the way through, and where each of the components is physically located and what's on there? Because I think it appears to be some confusion still.
Sure. Am I muted? So when you come in the road, coming in the center here, this is where the pumps are located right here. And they're at the low point. And we need them to be at the low point because this all goes uphill. And as we all know, the water's got to run downhill. And then we're going to pump it. It goes up through this easement, and then it disperses into a leaching field. So these actual lines that run up there, there's going to be more than one. I'm trying to think. The last one I just designed, I think we had a series of 4. It came out of the dispersal chamber. There's like a dispersal chamber that comes out. And then the field is just dosed, several times a day. So it goes up, it pumps out, and it goes into these, and it's a small bed of pipes in the sand, and there's several of them. I mean, this is a pretty large area. And it gets dosed. It's all on timers and flow meters. So that area up there is where all the water gets dispersed and recharged back into the ground. Each house has a little tank in their front yard. So each house will have a tank they'll have to pump out. Generally, we recommend they pump them out on a yearly basis to keep the solids down. And that probably would be part of the homeowners association. I would think that would be something you as a board would want to see. The pumps in the whole chamber and all that would be part of the homeowners association. So all the maintenance of the leaching field, it's all private. It would be part of the association. The town does not take acceptance of any of the sewer system ever. They would never take acceptance of a private system like this. So it's not a public sewer system. So, and it's pretty straightforward. I mean, and generally from a timing standpoint, we don't usually do the overall final design until we get through the process with the comprehensive permit. And the reason is it's just costly. We got to get prices on all the pumps. They're going to size all the pumps. They're going to want a deposit. We're going to work with the company, the Oakson company that does it, all that, the drip right system rather. And so we don't usually go to that extreme just because of the cost involved for the engineering. Because if the project doesn't go through, there's no reason to finalize those plans at this point in time. I just finished up on 2 very similar projects, and they both had, I think one had 20 houses, the other one had 16. They're actually building it now. The system's being installed as we speak. And that one we did not submit to the Board of Health until we actually submitted somewhere between the time we got the draft decision and the final decision from the Zoning Board of Appeals. So, I mean, if we get a draft decision, we know where the project's headed. That's generally the time frame in which we submit that. If anybody, like Mrs. Frelich, I'm sorry if I pronounced your name wrong, but I have no issue with providing people notice that we've submitted the septic plan and giving you copies, or, you know, that way you can go down and speak with Scott once he knows he has it and he's reviewing it. I have no issue giving people notice that that's been submitted, if
Yeah,
anybody wants to know.
Specifically, for Ms. Freilich, it would be there in that she's the single
Yeah,
citizen butter that's.
sure. Yeah, that would be fine with us. We would be more than happy to provide her notice and give her a copy of the plan.
I think that would be well.
So just to follow up to your question, Mr. Love,
Mhm.
in terms of the sewage that goes into the leaching fields, my understanding is that it goes into the soil, right? At some point it's treated or whatever, and then it's reabsorbed by the surrounding area. Is that correct, or am I not correct?
Yes, that's as a leaching field, and similar to probably what you have in your own home. It goes.
Right, except I have
goes
one.
into a tank, septic tank, and it settles, and then the water flows out to the top and to the leaching field where it's put back into the soil. And this just happens in between to run down the pipes to come together at the pump chamber and then get pumped back. So it's a longer flow than what happens in your yard.
Right. So it goes, that's what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
So what kind of standards are there in terms of how it affects the soil in the surrounding area? I mean,
Well, both the town and the state have very explicit standards, and that's why Scott is so involved with reviewing all of these. It has to meet all of the standards of the town. And then let me see Scott ready to answer, so
Okay.
I'll step back.
All right, thank you.
Okay. We have a hand raised by Megan. Could I give you a chance to ask a question?
Hi, I just had a quick question, and I'm a little bit confused by the leaching field being in Lot A, but then everybody having their own tanks. Maybe I'm just not understanding how the septic works, but you know, in my house, we have the septic field, the septic tank, and then the leaching field right above it. If the stuff is going into the tank, isn't that like I'm confused how it's staying in their own personal tanks, but then going up to the leaching field. Why do you need both? Why can't they just be in everybody's personal yards?
I will ask the experts to answer that so I don't misspeak.
I can speak on that, Mr. Chairman, again. So I think this was thought out from the beginning of the project. When you get these affordable housing projects, as you can see, the lots are very small. So they're really not set up to accommodate both, you know, the house, the leaching field, and everything that goes with it. Like some of the houses have, you know, 25, 30-foot front yards, and the setback requirements are you can't be within 20 feet of a house, you can't be within 10 feet of a property line. So if you only have a 30-foot front yard and your house is 30 feet, you can't fit a leaching field there. So way back when we got into the preliminary design with the applicant, this was thought out to do it as a common system. It's not uncommon to do this with a project of this type. We've done a few of them, like I said, in the two Pulte projects in town, which are over 55 communities, similar in some type where their houses are close together. They have a common system as well.
Could I ask a question? Are you seeking any relief from the requirements of the setbacks on the leaching system and any of that's in the common system from what would be required in individual systems?
No, we wouldn't seek relief for new construction on any new construction project. They wouldn't grant any relief.
Okay.
We would not get relief granted for new construction on any variances from Title V,
Yeah,
from the state nor the town.
right. Okay. Ms. Freilich, your hand back up again?
Sorry, yeah, one last
No, go ahead.
question on this topic. Are there any requirements to follow up at some point in the future to test the soil in their surrounding area? Is that part of the state requirement at all?
I don't know the answer to that. Robbie, you're shaking your head. No.
Nobody
Sorry.
knows?
I don't believe we've never done that in the past. You know, there are strict design guidelines we have to go by, but we've never come out and done testing on other people's property to check soils or things like that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. I'm going to follow down this list, and I think the next few may be all answered together. So
I have a question for Rob. Do you have sufficient, Rob Truex, do you have sufficient water pressure testing done for the project?
So my understanding is that
for potable water?
my understanding of this area is low pressure. And we've been asked by I think it's the director, not sure, to provide an area to install a booster pump system. We haven't had a chance to finalize that information. And they also asked us to run our water line, which we're not looping completely, but running it to the property line where the drainage basin is located off Indian Ridge Road. So I think the thought process for the town was if we put in a booster pump on our property, it would allow them to, and then they would connect up through Indian Ridge at some point in time, and that would enhance the pressure in the whole area. Because my understanding is there's some individuals that have separate booster pumps in their homes.
And the booster pumps, what about for fire protection too? Are you gonna?
Correct.
Okay.
The booster pump would provide fire flows.
okay. Let me move along. So we talked about the sanitary, and there will be, of course, the Board of Health will require the full set of plans, including the topographic information, flow information, and things like that. That's question 5, 6. 7 on the roadway geometry. The roadway is proposed a 20-foot pavement within a 50-foot right-of-way, consistent as a residential roadway. And there's specific, this is a waiver for the cul-de-sac geometry, right? Which will be part of the list that you're going to provide.
Correct. Yeah, the 20-foot wide pavement is that's what the subdivision regs in Holliston require for this road.
Mm-hmm.
The waiver, however, we would ask for, the waiver would be for the cul-de-sac length, which right now the existing Indian Ridge South exceeds the limit that's allowed.
I'm sorry, the limit of length to the cul-de-sac, or?
The limit from the subdivision regs is 500 feet from an intersecting street. And I believe Indian Ridge South is well beyond that already. I think it's, I want to say, I can't recall. Maybe someone could correct me, but I thought it was like 600 or 700 feet in length.
Okay. All right. Roadway geometry. handicap ramps, so that there's a comment there of looking for more detail on the plan regarding handicap and grading. Okay. The comment regarding the Indian Ridge sidewalk, we did talk about that at the last meeting. There isn't one. It was never installed, and there was not sufficient carry from the developer. There was a comment considering extension of the sidewalk to the proposed limit of construction through the existing cul-de-sac, since you're doing work there to carry the sidewalk basically as far as practical. Does any comment regarding that?
The way the plan shows it, the sidewalk would terminate at the driveway for the last house on Indian Ridge.
Okay.
So it extends to their driveway. I mean, we could bring it past their driveway to the cul-de-sac, put a handicap ramp right there. I don't see an issue with that.
Yeah, I think one of the concerns that everyone had in the first was the pedestrian safety, and the more sidewalk, the better. And I think that's something that we can still follow up with the DPW on further down the line. And that may also be further enhanced with the traffic information. All right, so but I think the feeling has been to extend that as far as possible. I mean, ideally we take it all the way down, but that's not something that we can lay on you. I see a couple hands up. Mr. Bolandrina, I'm sorry, I'm still doing it.
Well, you can just call me Bob B.
Okay, I'll do that.
Yeah. Two-part question. One, Mr. Truex, you mentioned a possible homeowners association taking responsibility for the mechanical and the leaching field. Will there be a homeowners association? And the second part, I think, is to the board members, is it possible to have the homeowners association either take out a bond or some insurance to make sure that that group can properly maintain this looks like a well-designed septic system, but if it's not maintained, and if the homeowners association neglects it, what's the recourse to the abutters?
Well, I think I can answer some of this. There will need to be a homeowners association, and part of what they have to do will be address all of this. In the past, we have tried to work with the applicants to define the homeowners regulations, and I'm not sure whether they have. We didn't really get into this yet, but have drafted anything or to propose, but that might be something that I suspect they've done them before in these kinds, and typically we'll start with something like that. But it's either that or we can put conditions in that require certain elements be made part of the homeowners plans, or that they be reviewed.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
In any decision that the board issues, it can include conditions that require the submittal of the homeowners association documents and have that reviewed by town council to ensure that the documents are consistent with the board's decision.
Yeah, and I know we've done that in past cases, and I would anticipate something like that because it is critical when you have a large grouping like this.
If there's a homeowners association, would the families or the owners of the affordable housing units be paying the same, or just curious? And if that's just a thought that came up to me while it was this. And then I have a follow-up question for Mr. Truex about the runoff. If it's not going in the septic system, where's it going?
Okay. I don't know the answer, and Paul, maybe you know the answer on the homeowner association, if they can allow a different rate for the affordable units. I don't know.
So, Mr. Chairman, that is part of the process for determining the price of the affordable units with the subsidizing agency. It's part of the formula. And they really have two choices. They can either set the amount to be paid for the homeowners association or condominium association, if it's a condo, equally for all units, in which case the affordable price for that unit is going to be lower, right? Or they can set it up so that the affordable unit owner is paying a percentage of the homeowners association cost or the condominium association costs based upon the value of the unit, in which case the sale price of that unit is higher. So it's baked into the formula, and it's really within the discretion of the subsidizing agency.
Okay, thank you. The second question regarded storm drainage, which I think we've got some specific comments in the report relative to that, but go ahead while we're here. If you could.
Yeah, that was to Mr. Truex. Where does the water go?
Sure. So the drainage system is obviously in the street for, we have catch basins, manholes, culverts, etc. that will convey the water to, if you remember in the beginning of my presentation, we talked about lot 1 being the drainage basin. So lot 1 has a large basin that's going to retain the water during the storm events and then release it down towards the wetlands as the storm dissipates. So lot 1 is the drainage basin. Let's see if I have a better look at that.
So when you say large basin, are we talking about one of those concrete things with holes in it, or is it like a swale, like one of those landscaped ditches? Yeah.
It's an open basin like a pond that'll be grassed and mowed and maintained.
Okay. And again, that would be the homeowners association's responsibility?
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's all I had. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Megan, a question?
Yeah, I just had another quick question. You said that there are 2 sites that have a similar leaching field system set up. My question is, those 2 sites are both 55 plus developments, and they use far less water than development that's aimed towards families with 3 to 4 bedrooms. That's kind of not comparing apples to apples. Is there another place nearby that has the same setup, but for something that's going to be using a significantly larger of water? I know that once my 4-year-old was potty trained, we used a lot more water, and we wind up pumping our septic more often. And that's just adding 1.
I can answer that, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, please.
So it's really not based on the type of unit. It's based on the amount of flow that's designed for the project. We're doing 24 units with 3 to 4 bedrooms. They did quite a few more units, even though it's over 55, and the flows are less for an over 55 unit than it is for a 3-bedroom house. It's about half, but they have about double the units. So their flow design is the same as our flow design. They just have more units to get to that flow. So their system is very similar, apples to apples, to what we're designing.
Thank you. Number 11 talks about roadway lighting and non-proposed streetlights may be provided and they'll be discussed. Is there any update on that?
No, we don't have any issue putting the streetlights in. I just wasn't sure where we would like to put them. I'm not sure where the streetlights are on the existing road, where they end, where the last one is, if there are any at all. I didn't see any on the as-built plan we did, so I wasn't sure. But I would assume that if there are some there, and we would put one at our intersection where the roads meet, obviously, and then maybe I don't know how many you'd like to see out there within that roadway network. You know, maybe one at the intersection, maybe one up on the far turn. So it's not in any, because we could put it near the entrance to the little drive that goes up to the septic system. That way it's not in anybody's windows. And we could get one at the intersection. Obviously you want to light up the intersection. And if there's nothing on the cul-de-sac, we could put one where we start to come into the site. I don't know if people would be opposed to that live there now. Maybe they can chime in on that. Some people don't like streetlights.
I have a comment on that, I suspect.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, just it's more for the board's consideration. Rob, just one of the options, I know some of the other similar smaller residential developments like this have gone with post lights also placed around the the sidewalk and edges of the roadway, just to give it not so much of the industrial streetlight feel. Is the applicant open to that sort of lighting design? And do you have a preference one way or the other?
I would be open to that. I think the applicant would be open to that. I mean, most houses are going to have a post light or a front door. I mean, and if you look at these houses, they're only set back about, what, 30 feet? So that post light could go right out in the front near the driveway and be relatively close to the street.
And I know in
Medway,
there's a few projects that were done. I know over at Williamsburg Way on West Street that have, and also I think Coffee Estates in Medway may have similar lighting setups.
I think it's just a preference for the board, whatever the town is more acceptable to. We'd be acceptable either way, whether you want the street lights, you want the post lights, or a combination of a little of both.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, I think our concern is that there be adequate lighting without it being, a burden to people. So we can take a look. Okay, Pamela Poor, question.
Hi, yes, thank you. This is Pam and John Poor. We're at 50 Indian Ridge Road. We are the closest. I can't see what lot we're at. Close to lot 1, I think that is where the pump station is. Can you tell how far we are from that pump station, and from our house to the pump station, what's there? Because this is where we kind of have wetlands near our house that we're worried about. Is that going to get wet at all in there?
Yeah, I think lot 1 down in the lower right section.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's what Rob was just describing as the retention basin.
Oh,
Right.
okay. Do we know how far the basin is from our house? Because we see the pump station. Is that what that is? Or is the basin closer to our house?
The basin's closer to your house than the pump station.
Okay.
So the basin's about, I mean, I'm just guessing where your house is, probably in the middle of your lot. So the basin's about 150 to 200 feet from your house, whereas the pump station would be about, from her house, I would say. I'm just going to the center of the lot. I'm assuming her house is centrally located. So I got about 150 feet to the berm.
Okay. Yeah, so I guess.
And then the pump station's on the other side.
Right. And is the pump station, is that like a loud piece of, I don't know anything about pump stations, so is that loud at all? and there's
a backup generator. They're not that loud. The generator runs every once in a while. It has to turn on and run the backup generator to make sure.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, because I see there's another house that would be built right next to it too, so that would probably be their concern. Okay, right. And just the other thing we were just saying about we were hearing about the lights. We don't have lights on our street now, and the group home has a lot of lights there at night, so we would kind of be opposed to lights, but I know that's kind of minor at this point. but the group home is right across the street from us. So mostly us and Sandy and Jay, who are next door to us, probably see the group home lights, maybe Tracy and Dave as well. Thank you.
Okay, no, thank you. Yeah, maybe we can take a look and ask for some, look at what the existing conditions relative to lighting are and try and do something that continues. But maybe the post lights would be the good compromise on that. All right, I'm gonna, oh, Bobby, do you have another question?
Yeah, I did, just about the lighting. It was because I believe it's called the Dark Sky Initiatives or Dark Sky Criteria, but just whatever lighting we do, to echo what Pam was saying, is there's got to be a balance. It can't be excessive. I mean, there's enough light pollution either coming from the Turner Road apartments and the group home, or on my side, on the Ashland side, coming from Shaw's Supermarket Plaza. So anything we can do, it's nice having that dark part of the neighborhood, but if it suddenly becomes another blasting beacon, that's going to be a problem.
No, definitely we've required that in the past, that use the dark sky criteria.
Okay, so you're familiar with that criterion. You've used it before.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and it makes sense in a lot of ways. So yeah, we'd like to find the right mix to keep it safe without making it an eyesore. Okay, no landscaping plan or details. That was updated to show that street trees. So there's a recommendation of a tree planting and maintenance easement to be provided. And whether, do you anticipate have any further landscape planning plan and details that you would have to have them for the final stuff? But
I mean, I don't anticipate much. I mean, this is this project is primarily a subdivision, and we would do no different than what we do in a subdivision. We would have the street trees. We generally don't put them in an easement. They just go on the back of the right of way. You can put something, we can, definitely put something in the homeowners association about the street trees being maintained, that if they die, they get replaced. To that effect, I mean, someone's got to take care of them. I mean, usually the homeowner they'll be in their front yards. So I'm thinking they're going to want to take care of their own landscaping. Each person will have, we probably won't have a landscaper come in and landscape all the units. We haven't discussed that, but they are individual lots. Each person owns their own lot, and it is a subdivision layout. So they will have their own house lot, so they will maintain it. There'll be restrictions as to what they can do in the sense of like putting up sheds, swimming pools, things like that, I'm sure. In the covenants in the homeowners association, which they'll all get this. We haven't really discussed that, but I'm thinking the trees though, I think just in the association, if you had something about maintaining them over time, if they die, they'd be replaced.
right.
We generally don't put I haven't done a tree easement in a subdivision.
Okay. Let's move along. We have number 13. This has come up a few times, and this may be a question for the developer, but the original application has mentioned a dog park and passive recreation amenities, which is inconsistent with what is shown on the plan. So I don't know if you have the information to clarify that, but I think we want to pass it back to.
I really don't. I don't know what that was pertaining to. That wasn't part of anything I submitted.
Right. So I
I'll have to
want to
let
make sure
Dean.
that gets clarified, because there is conflicting information in various documents about that. And it's probably a reflection of the evolution of the idea and the design, but I think we would ask that get resolved. So if we get that back to the developer.
Sure.
Okay. Okay, 14 talks that I think you've provided the most of it. And then there's a question about the location of affordable units, which we've already discussed. Number 18, Rob talks about the abandonment of the easement on the northwest corner. Is there anything that will be done to document that, or just continue?
I can ask the owner, the applicant, to provide something on that.
Okay, we might as well cross the i's and dot the t's on that. 19 existing easements are not labeled. That's been done. 20-foot wide easement should be labeled on sheet 7, 17. All right, that's a note. All right, so you've seen that note. That's
You have to bring it back.
housekeeping. I'm sorry.
I went through all the
question. I missed that.
We've been through I read through all the comments and I didn't see anything that was, we wouldn't be amenable to.
Right.
But go ahead and go through them. And if you have questions on any of them, I'll see what if I can answer them, I will.
Yeah, I'm just scrolling through, make sure we don't miss, but I did see a question.
Yep.
Donna has her hand raised. I apologize. I just saw it. You may need to unmute yourself. We're not hearing.
That is my signature move. Hi, this is Donica Howeisen at 6 Indian Ridge Road. Just in the context of the discussion about the street trees and adding trees in and there being no landscaping plan, the original comprehensive permit application talked about there's a statement in that the applicant intends to preserve mature trees and native vegetation, which will allow for over 50% of the site to remain in its natural state. Is that still the plan?
I think
currently looks like
I think there was some discussion about that when we did the walkthrough, and I think that my take, and Rob, correct me if this is not accurate, but was that 50% staying in natural, I think referred to 50% of the land area remaining natural in terms of not being paved or built upon, not necessarily staying virgin the way it is, but that the total, I think that's what the developer was talking about at that meeting. Is that sound right?
That's what, yes, that's what Dean had said. Yeah. That's what Dean had stated.
So I think that it read as if, or at least was interpreted as 50% would stay in the condition it is now. I don't think that was the intent. I think the intent was greater than 50% or about 50% of the total lot area would be green, whether it be lawn, woods, whatever, and the rest is house, sidewalk, street, stuff like that.
So the preserved land is expected to be just the unbuildable parts of the property.
Probably, yeah. I'll leave that to Rob. You can answer that, but that was my understanding from that discussion.
That was my understanding from what Dean had said. He put that application together. So yeah, I mean, if you look at this, I'm trying to give you a sheet to look at. But you know, the biggest area that'll be natural forest is along the backs of lots 13 through 17. If you look at this line right here, this area right in here is the biggest area that will remain. That will remain natural in its current state. And if you remember, I don't know who was on the sidewalk with us, but when we walked along the ridge, this was where the ridge was. We were walking when we came back down from our sidewalk. And we were saying that that was the limit of clearing. So all this forested area was going to stay, and I believe the abutters that were along there were on the sidewalk, and we're happy to hear that.
So it's more like 15% might remain in its natural
I
state.
believe it's more like 25 of natural, 20 to 25 is what it comes out to be. Because there's some area down in the backs around these houses up here and over here, but this was probably the largest piece is right here. This is it. So that, and that really is up along the abutting properties for the Holliston side.
And is it safe to assume, Rob, that with the exception of like those corners that you mentioned in the back, everything from that line that you just showed up to at least the backs of the other, it would be
This would all be natural.
disturbed. Yeah.
And that's about
Would all be
just a little, it's probably 2.25, 2.5 acres.
Yeah. Okay. Bobby, question?
Yeah, how much of the land at the backs of lots 7, 8, 9, and 10 would remain natural or would be cleared all the way up to the borderline? At the top, the northern side of it, the side facing ashland.
There's not a lot of buffering there, maybe 15, 20 feet.
Okay, so
There's not a
but
lot
there
of
is
buffering
plan
along
to, you're not going to cut all the way
Leave
to
some of
the,
that.
yeah, you'll plan on leaving.
No.
Okay, yeah. And
Yeah,
just
there's
a
a big knoll up here on the right in that
Yeah.
back corner. And then the piece, do you live in the condos over there?
Yeah, right about where
Or-
the show button is, a little, yeah, right about there.
So there is a parcel of land that runs all the way down from Cedar Street. that
Yeah,
the
it's like a
woman
pork
owns,
chop
that
piece
has
of
the
land.
house way up there.
So
Yeah, it's like a long
that's also,
sliver.
yeah. But do you know how wide that is, right around that area?
I think it's about 100 feet. Actually, I
Wide
could probably-
or long?
Oh,
I don't
long?
think-
Oh, God, it's
No, I'm
Well, it
not
comes
not
all
so
the
much
way
long,
down.
but from because if I walk in, there's some trails in there now, and if I go in from
Right.
the Ashland side, there's a trailhead right in there next to my unit, and I don't remember being that much land between there and because I think where you're planting lot A is where that pile of rocks is now, right?
correct.
Yeah, so
How far do you think those pile of rocks are from you?
that
Yeah,
pile
that
of
pile of
rocks
rocks
to
is
my
right-
place, yeah, I'd be
That
surprised.
pile of rocks is right here.
Okay, yeah, so that's
Right.
yeah, that's not that far from the closest unit that's there. I cut over diagonally, so I get a little bit more distance, but yeah, that's one of the things that I've talked to my neighbors about. They're concerned about being able to look in everybody's back windows, and those folks.
When we were standing out here, we walked back on these lots 9 and 10. If you remember on the sidewalk, I don't know if you were there.
I wasn't on the sidewalk, but I'm familiar with the
We
area.
stood right here. We stood right here and could not see your houses. We stood right in this area. As a matter of fact, someone came up the trail and saw us and turned around and went back.
Yeah.
They were coming up through that trail.
Okay.
But we were all standing gathered right in this area near that pile of rocks, or just beyond it.
Yeah.
I couldn't see your house.
And when was it? It was in March, right? Oh no, when was that?
It was during this COVID thing. We all went and had our masks on. It was.
Yeah, well, so the
pretty-
trees were
When did we walk that?
in leaf. They weren't bare.
Oh yeah. Yeah, we were out there a month or so ago, month and a half ago.
Yeah, so
Back in
the
May, I
trees were in
believe.
full leaf. Okay.
Fully.
Yeah, it's different after the fall.
Everything is.
Yeah. A question for the board. So we've talked about, possible homeowners association and reviewing some documents on that. Where does that fall into the process? Would that be something that the board requires and then there'd be public comment, or is it handled somewhere else?
We will have the conversations with them and see how far, I mean, the more they can provide, whether it be samples or whatnot, then the less we would have to get. I mean, we could refer specifically to those. If they don't provide it, then we will probably have a longer list of requirements for those homeowners associations. And as Attorney Harry said, probably a condition, and I'm speculating, but this is where we've seen this in past ones, condition that it be reviewed by town attorney and make sure that it meets those requirements. So, you know, I've seen both where we've had like a full draft of or next to nothing. So we try to make up the difference in anything that we would require of them.
Okay, thank you. And then okay, one more for this. When's the right time to ask about construction techniques, and then whether or not there's any plans to use explosives or heavy percussion type of stuff that could be sending shockwaves through to the abutters? I love my house, but I know who built it, and I'm afraid of any vibrations.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Truax knows what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
You don't have to comment.
Yeah, no, I think we will. I'm just trying to think about the whole construction sequence. Why don't we table that for now? Because I think there will be other construction related questions that we can probably tackle all at once, both methods, timing, access, hours, and all of that. So,
but it would be this board, right?
Yes, it's all part of this comprehensive permit. We will address, pardon me, it's walking up a bug. We will address all the requirements for the project. We also will take other boards in town and committees' recommendations to go into that. So absolutely it will be. Okay. So I mean, as we
one more thing for I'm sorry, Mr. Truax. When you send those notifications, can you include me too? I don't know if you want my email address or how I can get in touch with you.
Which notifications
there was a discussion earlier in the meeting about
the Board of Health notification on the.
Thank you. Yeah, that.
Okay, sure. Can you send me an email on our website and just send me?
What's your website?
It's GLM Engineering. Just go on, you'll find us.
Okay.
It's on the plans.
On that plan, right?
Okay, that's all I needed.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. No, I think we'll be able to pop through some of these quickly because a lot of them have already been done. Easements we talked about. Water department we talked about. Parking. Sewer force main we got. That's number 30, 31, 34. Then the next few have to do with the roadway design and traffic, and I think let's deal with those when we have the traffic engineer on here. Wetlands crossing, cross-section and retaining wall details are not provided, number 41 here, and a recommendation of a steel garden fencing. Any comment to that?
No, that's we're fine with that. We'll put a guardrail.
The next one has goes into the Conservation Commission filing, so that will follow up through that. I think likewise with the wetlands replication area grading and the order conditions relative to that. Stormwater management design comments. We have actually talked about some of these, but let me see what we've got. 45, additional offsite drainage area. Okay, this was just a comment, and I think this actually it is probably pertinent to some of the concerns of the neighbors as well about a watershed map documenting the upstream areas as well. Is that a problem?
No problem.
Okay.
We'll provide that.
Yeah, I think that makes sense because with the detention basin down in that existing wetland area where we know there's problems, I think it's worth overanalyzing and make sure we are certain that creating any
no issue
problems. Yep. Catch basin in the capacity evaluation. Potential subcatchment site stormwater discharge points. I'm going to defer on this. Numbers 48 and 53 and 55 regarding the stormwater. Can you just speak to those comments, Rob, and let me know if they make, either you're going to take them in or address them.
So 48 is, that's just the double graded catch basins. And I think he's just asking, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, David, but I believe he's just looking for those to be shown on the plan.
Oh, I see. That is what they are. I misunderstood that. Gotcha.
But then the other one he's talking about, and let's see if I can show you. You can't on that screen. I probably can on a different screen. Let me pull up a different screen for you to look at. Hold on. I should do that earlier. I'm trying to slide this screen. Tell me if the screen changes. Did you guys just get a new screen?
Yep. Yeah, there it comes.
Perfect. So what he's talking about, I'm going to zoom in a little, is this area in the back right here. P4, see where the P4 is?
Mm-hmm.
So there's a low spot right here on the back of these lots. And there's a small amount of flow that's going to contribute to that previously and developed. Because these houses are going to block it from coming out into the street, and then it just sits there. It's a very small area. And I believe, David, what I was showing was a slight increase in stormwater flowing into that area. And that's what he's asking maybe. I did show, I did put infiltration on these two houses for the roof on the back side. I did not take those out of the equation, so they're still there. But I did show some infiltration to help mitigate that on these two houses. I believe I listed it on the detail sheet that those two houses will have infiltration, as well as the ones that was asked for on the downhill side. And then this other area just flows down towards this little P5. This water comes down into this swale here and comes down into this drainage basin. This is just a small sliver of land that's on the back side of the hill that flows off the site. And I think there was something in there. I don't remember the numbers. I don't have them open right now. But it was something around maybe like a 0.01 or 0.1 CFS or something.
Right.
Slight increase, David, if you recall.
Right, and it's just one of those things, it's a minor increase, but still technically, I've had this in other towns, it's still an increase. So if there's a way you can maybe adjust the grading a little bit just to get that to equal, or that way it would just make sure there was no increase in runoff.
I think what we could do on that is where it says P5, that's part of the septic area. We could pitch that whole septic to the other side, towards like this way, coming across. I can't point with I'm trying to point with my finger so you can see me. And come across towards the street. So that whole back area right here, we would get off. And that would help this lady's suggestion about she's worried about grading, runoff, and things like that. So that would all add to helping her cause. So I have no issue doing that.
Okay.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Thank you.
I'm going to get rid of the screen. Go back to the other one. You're getting better at the screen sharing.
Okay, I was looking through 59 drywalls that has been addressed and just recommended it be witnessed by Scott. High groundwater elevation separation. Typo, I'll let you clean that up. Number 71, which talks about submittal of Npdes verification and stormwater pollution prevention plan. Any concerns with that?
No, we have to do that before
Okay.
we can start construction.
Done.
Yeah, you can condition. That's usually a typical condition of approval
Mhm.
on anything, subdivision, 40B, whatever, site plan. That's,
Okay.
that's a
Sorry, I've been
standard condition.
looking at this and we've had some questions come up, so I may be getting ahead of those. Donica, please go ahead. Sorry, I got too many screens open.
Oh, no worries. Just to follow up on what Bob pointed out with the screening on the backsides of lots 10, 9, and 8 being maintained, and then there's the natural screening is going to be kept on lots 15, 14, 13. So really the only break is right along Cecile's property line. Would it be possible to scale back the size of that septic field if the individual holding tanks were increased at each property, so that you could maintain a natural vegetation border between that field and Cecile's property?
If I could, Mr. Chairman, I can't reduce the field based on the tanks. That's not how it works. The flow is going to go through the tanks and come out no matter how big they are at the end of the day. But I wouldn't be opposed to, trying to slide it some way from her property. So I don't know that leaving vegetation there would help her because it's pretty sparse up there. I've walked up there. There's not a lot of understory. And I think it'd be better if I were to plant something for her.
Mm-hmm.
We agreed that we would put a fence. And so maybe what we could do is we could do the fence. Obviously that's instant screening. And then on our side of the fence, we could do a row of plantings so that by maybe in 20 years, the fence falls down, that she has plantings there that are above the fence and screen her. I wouldn't be opposed to doing some screening for her at all. You are correct. She is the only one that doesn't have a buffer of any sort.
Right, that you're going to see right across that field to the homes and
Yeah.
and everything. Yeah.
Yeah, so Cecile also has her hand up, so she may have an opinion on what goes next to her property. Stronger than mine.
Cecile, go right ahead.
Yeah. Well, I'm not really sure about that part, but my question is whether when changes are made, how are we going to learn about them? Are the plans going to be posted, or? In other words, you're suggesting making plans to make things better. How are we going to know what they look like? And
well, I think there'll be two. I think any of these that are updated on interim versions of these plans and submitted, you will absolutely be public record and available. Stuff that is not, I think ultimately, if we grant the comprehensive permit, it will reference the latest version of any plans that have submitted, and anything that is reflected on them would become part of that permit. Anything that's not reflected on them, but we've discussed about doing, we would have to condition into to make sure that it gets on the final, because we won't, I don't think we'll see the final construction plans prior to this permit process happening. That will be down the line.
so is that basically that whole area going to look like grass, or what does it look like?
It'll be grass.
And then the home's right next to it.
Correct. It has to be grass. We can't do any tree planting on the system.
Okay.
But I mean, Mr. Chairman, to help her, you know, with her concern, I do think you could put a condition of approval in there about whatever we provide in that when the septic is finalized and we provide a buffering, that the board review that. Has the option to review that buffering. And we could, and at that point we could share it with her. I'll be sharing it with her anyway, but you would have the opportunity to look at that prior to finalizing that plan.
Yeah, we would recommend that. I think we'll talk with both of you, that you have some direct conversation, and because it's such a unique and specific area, single tenant, that, you know, we reach some common consensus on that. That's what the board would be looking for. Okay. Pam, do you have another question, or is it still?
No, thank you.
Okay, thanks. Then we'll move along. Okay, we've got maintenance and inspection schedule. Deep sump basins should be 4 times per year. Post-construction operation and maintenance, the log forms not provided. Okay, I think they were looking for the specifics to go on to that. And 81 was the discharge system provided. Okay, so it's just a recommendation for a condition. David, is there anything that we didn't discuss in there that you think we should bring up and look for?
Not at this time, Mr. Chairman. I know the two, probably the most up is the waiver list, and then the traffic engineers report, which I know is still has to be performed. So.
Okay. Does any members of the board have further engineering, civil engineering related questions, so that cover them? Or
I don't. It's Jack.
None. It's Mark. None from me. I took a lot of notes for things later.
Good, because we have to have those. Anybody else in the audience? I've tried to pick them up as we went so that we kept them in the right place. But okay, looks like we do have to. Pam, go ahead.
Hi, this is John Poor, 50 Indian Ridge Road. I'm still concerned about the 2 catch basins that catch the intermittent stream. If I don't keep those clear, as I mentioned in the past, they can come down and almost come up to the base of my walkout basement door. What is going to happen when the road gets put in? Where's that water going to go? And also the second part, how much of that land is owned from the edge of the cul-de-sac up to David Adams' machine? Is that town land, or does David own all the way from the curbing on Indian Ridge Road South cul-de-sac? Just curious who owns that land.
Rob, can I ask you to, I think you're probably most familiar with this. The first
I believe the right of way goes, the town owns the right of way up to the property. So this strip right here is owned by the town.
So it's the town's responsibility to deal with the intermittent stream?
No, we're dealing with it actually. We're gonna put a culvert under the road right here.
Right.
So there'll be a culvert that goes under the road. When you say deal with it, I'm not sure I follow what you mean. Like to maintain it and keep it clean all the time? Is that what
I'm just concerned. I'm concerned the culverts is going to dump onto my land and flood out. If those 2 culverts that are there existing now, that they dump into for the last 15 years that I've been here, if they're capped off or covered, or
Where are those two culverts we're talking about?
One's
You're
right,
talking
there's matting on the left side where Mr. Adams has his matting as you walk into the woods, and on the right side, there's a catch basin with a cement pipe in it. I think it's 8-inch pipe that catches all the water from the intermittent stream for the last at least 15 years that I've been here.
And where does that go?
We've been asking the town that for quite a while. We cannot get an answer.
Because my company surveyed this, and we didn't see that pipe coming into anything in the
I'd
road.
be happy to show you anytime you like.
I would like to see it, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would.
Clear as day.
What I'll do is I'll reach out to you. I'm not going to see it this week because I'm going away next week. But I will reach out to you, and maybe you can meet me out there and you can show me what you're talking about.
Absolutely. I don't mind if it just gets cut off and dumped somewhere else. I'm afraid.
Yeah, no, I hear you. I want to see it though. I want to see what it.
Sure,
I wonder where it's coming from.
Yeah.
I wonder if it's coming from something else.
Days when James Road was developed, we're not sure. A friend of mine went down to the town hall and he couldn't get any information. So yeah, that'd be great. I'd love to meet up with you. That'd be fabulous. Thank you.
All right.
Do you have my email?
Yeah, you can email me. So it's well, you can get it on the website. You can go on GLM and you'll see me on there.
Perfect. Thank you.
Good.
The other question too is why does the cul-de-sac have to be turned into a straight road?
That was the way it was proposed on the original subdivision when they did Indian Ridge. So
right, when it was considered
if we
pass through. Yeah.
I mean the town's gonna maintain this, and I just would find it hard to believe that the DPW wants to come down and plow that cul-de-sac and then plow right through to the end of the road as well.
I'm shocked.
It just doesn't make sense.
Yeah. Is there any way?
And they don't own. The town doesn't own the bubbles on your property and across the street. Those were temporary rounding easements.
Right.
If you look at it's temporary turnaround. That was an easement that was supposed to be temporary, and at the time when this gets pushed through, those easements should be released.
Correct. Yeah. My assumption was when there were the two Indian ridges were going to tie together, that would be the case. Right. But now that we only have one means of egress in and out of this road, it would be more helpful for the people on the cul-de-sac to have a little turnaround area. I was just curious who's going to do it.
Slow people down.
Slow people down maybe a little bit. I don't know. We're just thinking out loud here.
Well, we can. I think we can reach out to the DPW and get some opinions there. And it sounds to me, Rob, like the proponent doesn't care a whole lot one way or the other.
Well, he's got to rip it out, and whoever builds the project, the applicant, the developer, they're gonna be responsible to remove it, put the curbing in, reseed it, grass it, and all that. I mean, that's a sizable expense.
Right. So if they kept it, he probably wouldn't object to that, but we don't anticipate that.
I would reach out to DPW, Mr. Chairman, and get their opinion on it.
That's our responsibility.
All right. Well, that's all I have. Thanks, guys. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Cecile, do you hand up again?
Yes, I do. So I don't know if you're going to get to it. It kind of sounded like you were close to the end, but I did want the blasting, crushing of the boulders to be addressed.
Oh, yeah, we were going to hold all the construction related stuff to a later meeting and deal with it at one time.
I see. Okay. Well, as long as that was addressed at some point.
Yeah, I think we'll do it, and that would typically go in as conditions for construction, what they can and can't do. But Rob, maybe that's just something to ask the
sure
applicant to be prepared to talk about in the future meeting, what the plans and what the anticipation is for blasting and other more obtrusive construction techniques. Okay. Now you talk about I think the next big concern that we want to address is the whole traffic issue. We've had a lot of conversation in our earlier meetings about the concepts. We've now gotten the report. We haven't had a chance to have it peer reviewed, which we want to do. We're in the process of bringing someone on to do it, and then I presume they'll need a couple weeks. So I think we need to talk about scheduling the next meeting regarding that. So we're at the 22nd of July. If we have somebody going on this within the next week or two, give them a couple weeks to do it and use some time to respond. I think we're pushing ourselves to the end of August, beginning of September. So I would reach out to both the board members and the applicant to see if we can figure out a good day for a meeting to put that on the agenda. What do we have? The end of August is
26th.
Yeah, so we'd be either looking at the 26th of August or I guess the 2nd of September or 9th.
I'm sorry, this is Karen. Just a reminder that you had scheduled 2 other items for the 26th.
Okay.
I thought we scheduled those for the 12th.
Yeah, that's kind of where I was thinking as well. I didn't think it was that far out. Oh, maybe not.
This is Liz. It was the 26th because I couldn't do the 12th.
Right.
Okay.
That's right. Yeah, it's in the minutes too. So the 26th is, we've already got
All right, so
at least one.
2.
Why don't we just do,
why don't we do a separate meeting for this, if we could do it maybe the following week? You guys okay with back-to-back meetings?
Are you talking the September 2nd?
Yeah, or I guess could be the 9th, but
I can do either.
yeah, I can do either too.
okay.
Say the
Rob,
9th.
anything from your side of the equation, or Paul, I should ask you the same. Because it sounds like I'm like you guys, either one works for me.
I'm available either night.
I'm sorry?
I'm available either night.
Okay. Rob, is there a preference from your side?
I don't believe so. I think we're fine.
Why don't we go for the 2nd then? And
No.
Okay.
okay.
Same time, 7 o'clock.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Well, I want to thank everybody for all the information that you brought and were able to share and get out there, and as well as a lot of great questions to keep us thinking about what needs to go into this thing. Are there any final questions while we have everybody on here that anybody wants to go out there? So just as process for the abutters and concerned out there, the traffic report we got in is on the website right now. You can look at. We anticipate getting a peer reviewer on board shortly, and then would hope within a couple weeks to have their response to it. Given if we can keep things moving along, there may be then even the opportunity for the traffic engineer that's prepared to report to even respond to that by then, hopefully. And then we'll ask all of them to be there and go through the issues at that time. I again would ask if you are reading through it as citizens and have questions or concerns, please shoot us something, because I think if we can get that information to the proponents and to our engineers ahead of time, it will make for better answers instead of people saying don't know. So I appreciate people have been very good so far with this, and I think it's really going to help us to get to the best solution. So thank you. So Mark, Jay, any other business for tonight that you guys have?
I don't have anything to add.
Well, that
Nor do I.
I don't either. Karen, anything that on your mind that we should be doing? All right, in that case, we would certainly welcome a motion to adjourn.
I think, do we have to continue the hearing, right?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, why don't we do that
Yeah,
first?
so I'll make a motion that we continue the,
we just ended it.
I'll make a motion, we continue the hearing on the comprehensive permit for the Jeffrey Park project until September 2nd, 2020 at 7 p.m.
Seconded.
It's been moved and seconded. Further discussion? Hearing none, we'll have a roll call vote. All those in favor of continuing the meeting till the date and time specified, say aye. John, aye. Jay?
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
Okay. And Liz is recused, so motion carries.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Thank you, Rob. Thank you, Paul.
Thanks, Rob.
Good night.
Thanks, Dave.
Thanks, Paul.
Rob.
Appreciate
Thanks, Paul. Thanks,
all your
Karen.
work, and we'll see folks in a few weeks.
Okay.
Stay safe.
Night.
Thanks all.
Night. Thank you.
And thank you, Chris, for once again shepherding us through.
Not a problem.
Someone actually make a motion to adjourn?
Nope, you guys just closed out, so you're still technically officially on, I believe.
I'll move it, and but it died for lack of a second.
I'll second.
Oh, thank you, Liz.
There you go, Liz.
Been moved and seconded. All those in favor, John, aye. Jay abstains. Mark abstains. Liz?
Aye.
Motion carries. We're adjourned. Thank you.